Welcome to Developing a Strategy for Rare Colored Diamonds. My name is Scott West. This is my first time doing this. I hear a lot of you have done this many times before. But there is a question answer. If you want to ask any questions throughout the presentation, you can just throw them up there. And I'll be happy to answer them as they go and at any time. A little background about me and my company. I work for LJ West, Larry West, which we started from my father in '78. So it's been a company around for a long while. We primarily do colored diamonds. Now we're over 90% colored diamonds. I've been in the business for 10 years. I'm also now the treasurer of the NCDIA, which is a Natural Colored Diamond Association. So you can say I live and breathe this stuff all the time. And it's a great product. It's a growing product, and it seems to be continuing in that direction and fit for the current market of the world, really. So this is the mission of this presentation. But before I even get into this, I'm going to ask the crowd, and there's not much interaction, but unless you ask a question. But if you think to yourself of some of the high-end sales that you made, any high-end sales, just think of that for a second, and you will probably see that as you go higher in value, they start to be asset-based items. So at first they could be, pieces of jewelry, but then as you get bigger, and maybe watches, as you get bigger, they start to be stones or very transparent sort of items. So big white diamonds, big gemstones, can be colored diamonds, watches that are known to be very rare. And the reason for this is because people understand the value. If someone is going into a store, most people who have ever bought a diamond before, maybe someone thinks obviously $5,000 is a lot of value, but they usually understand that they're not going to buy a 10-carat diamond for $5,000. They have an impression of how much a 10-carat diamond will be. Maybe they don't know exactly, but they're sure it's over 5. It's probably over 50,000 and could be in the hundreds of thousands. So that works both ways and makes them not ask. If they have a budget of 5,000, that makes them not ask for such a large stone. And if they are asking for a large stone, it makes them understand that it will be in these very high price ranges. So they're not shell-shocked, and they're willing to spend this type of money for large stones because they know, they've seen the market, they've read about diamonds, and they've seen that they can get up to these high prices and get up to those kinds of sizes. So to get into the mission of what we want to learn here, we want to expand our knowledge on colored diamonds. First and foremost, you have to learn as much as you can about any product. The colored diamonds at the beginning, especially for the lower price ranges, they're like most of the other products that you probably already know about that you've sold. It takes understanding what they are so you can be the expert, so you can show them the good and the bad of the type of product, what's special about it, why it's rare. It's very similar from many other products. A huge advantage of colored diamonds is that because of this asset base that I just talked about, if you want to get to the highest end sales, they are going to be in colored diamonds. A large percentage of them, as you get higher and higher, they get to be a larger percentage of colored diamonds. And that's because if you look for a 10-carat white diamond, you understand it's not going to be $5,000. If you look for a large blue diamond, you are not going to find it for $100,000. You're not going to find it for $500,000 if you're looking for a 2-carat vivid blue diamond. Anybody who's looking for these stones is going to see that there's a well-established market. They can't find it for a considerably low price, if they can find it at all. So when they do that, as you show them the market and as they look for it themselves, it solidifies that knowledge even more in their heads. Even without you showing them, when they look up on their own, they start to realize that yes, a 2-carat blue diamond is such a high price. And that gives them the confidence to say, okay, when they eventually do want to buy, yes, it is worth these really high-end prices. So again, back to understanding that it's just like any on the regular prices, any other product, we want to expand this knowledge so that we could plant those seeds and possibly get up to those larger sales. We're going to further talk about why color diamonds are different than other brands and other products. We're going to talk about where the retail market is going. We all see that that our market is changing, and we see that all retail is changing, and many markets are changing, many industries are changing. How we can utilize this, how to understand it, what's going on, and maybe in some cases this can be an advantage, and how to sell and understand high-end customers. There's a little bit different of approach that you can utilize in going after high-end customers. One is when you want to spend time doing it, how to understand what the customer is looking for and what to sell them, what to show them to get the highest percentage chance of making a sale. So starting with understanding color diamonds, let's go over the general basics. Color diamonds, they come in all colors of the rainbow, some more rare, some colors more rare than others, but it's amazing that you can, if you wait long enough, you can eventually find most colors that you can imagine. The GIA, which we all know, it's they divide the color spectrum into hues. Hues just means color, and they divide that into 27 different sections. So you have your major colors: blue, green, purple, orange, and in between these colors that are not just straight one color, then they have a modifying color. So going from yellow to green, for instance, if it's all yellow, it's going to be called fancy yellow. And then if it's going to have a little bit of green, but mostly be yellow, they call that yellowish green. So the dominant color is actually the second word. And if it's ish, it's less than if it's a full word. So yellowish green is less than yellow green, less yellow than yellow green. And then green yellow, so then it's mostly yellow in that case, and greenish yellow, which is almost all yellow. And it's for, if you want to talk about percentages, if you see an ish, that's around 20%. So yellowish green will be at 20% yellow and 80% green. And if you see two full words, yellow green, that'll be, because green is second, that's the dominant color, it'll be 60% green and 40% yellow. Yellow green is mostly green. So after hue or color, they then divide it up into saturation and tone. And they call this a three-dimensional color spectrum. So you have the wheel, and in each one of these colors, you actually have another two-dimensional section like you see on the right of the tone and the saturation. So the saturation is it blue in your face, or do you just slightly see the color? That is saturation. And tone is the lightness or darkness. So even if the color is very much obvious to see, is it a beautiful sky blue, or is it a dark ink sort of blue? That's tone. Looking on the right, this is a comparison for pink diamonds. You see pink, the strongest of the pinks, they say are fancy red. They're in the same color spectrum as pink. And you can see this, as you go farther down, that's tone, and as you go farther right, that's saturation. That's the X and Y axis of this graph to the right of the screen. You can see even if you have all saturation but don't have a lot of tone, they would call that fancy vivid. They're saying here that they need a certain amount of tone to actually get to red. And you can even have the amount, let's depict it here, you can have the amount of saturation that gets you a fancy pink. If you have enough tone, they will call it a fancy red. In terms of value for these stones, the more saturated in general is the higher the price. In terms of tone, it could be a positive or a negative depending on the color. In blues, deep blues generally go for at the same price as intense, which is equal in terms of saturation but different, but deep would be more in terms of tone. And for each one of these colors, it has a little bit different of a divide between intense and deep. Yellows would actually be less for a deep. Pinks can sometimes be less for a pink depending on what the stone looks like. So how do these stones get their color? Diamonds are made out of carbon. Each one of these colors comes from different areas of the world. Some come in many areas, and they get their color for different reasons. So most stones have some nitrogen. If you have a stone without any nitrogen, it's called type 2A, and those are the big, they call them Golconda, big DIF stones, and that's actually defined as 0 nitrogen. And that's only a small percentage of those stones. So most of them do have some nitrogen. When it gets to the point where they have a lot of nitrogen, they're called yellow diamonds. And the more nitrogen says, the more yellow it is. These stones come from mines all over the world, from Canada, from South Africa, from Australia, and Russia and other places. And that's nitrogen is a trace element, they call it. So another trace element is boron, and boron produces blue diamonds. So similar reason to the nitrogen. Boron and blue diamonds are called type 2B stones. B, you can say B for boron or blue to help you remember. And they only come from a few mines. The famous mine is the Cullinan mine, known by Petra, and the old mine, famous old mine of the Golconda mines, which is the old famous stones, like the Hope Diamond and the Wittelsbach, are stones that come from the Golconda region. The difference in these two regions is the Golconda region actually has like a deeper, more violet kind of color on average. Green diamonds get their color from a totally different reason. They get their color from a pocket of radiation nearby as they're formed for millions of years. An interesting part about green diamonds is that in some cases, if it either has been far away or hasn't happened or the radiation hasn't been there for a long time, sometimes in some cases the green doesn't quite penetrate the stone. So you can see some of these stones called skin stones. In terms of value, the higher value stones are the stones where you can polish away the entire skin and still have green color. And that's actually color that's penetrated the stone. So if you see a stone, the GIA cert that has naturals everywhere, that's an indication that it could have skin, and not that it's bad as long as it looks nice. It does have a value and can be sought after, but it is a lower price than a stone that does not have a lot of skin and the color is actually penetrated throughout the whole stone. Pink diamonds and brown diamonds actually get their color from the same reason. They have stress inside the crystal lattice structure of the stone. Here it's listed as crystal distortion. And the pinks are just once in a crazy while from the brown diamonds. So they come from the same mines. And it's not a trace element. The stress inside the stones actually forms the color that you see. And because of that, it's also a reason why a lot of brown diamonds and pink diamonds happen to be very included, because they already have all that stress inside them. It's also a reason why they, in those types of mines especially, in terms of mines that produce a lot of pinks and brown diamonds like Argyle, they don't happen to get to such large sizes. 1-2 carat stones are usually the largest that they get. Argyle, the largest tender stone they've had, is a 4 carat stone. besides Argyle produces over 90% of the pink diamonds in the world. There are mines in South Africa as well. Those can also be type 2A. In fact, if you see a large pink diamond, it's actually probably type 2A. And those types of stones are in contrast to the low clarities of Argyle. Actually usually have higher clarities. So in terms of rarity and value, the more rare the stone is in general, the higher the value. And the more saturated the stone is, the higher the value. So in this, browns are actually the least rare, and so they're the lowest value. And then yellow's a little more rare than that, but in comparison to the other colors, not as rare, so it's a higher value again. And then once you get to the blues and the pinks, and finally the reds and the oranges, as you go up in the rarity scale, you actually get to higher values. There are some cases where stone is so rare, or color is so rare, that the market is not yet established. So this is slowly changing now that it's been even longer while that people have known about colored diamonds and demand has grown. But if you look at the highest record for an orange diamond was a 14-karat vivid orange, and it sold for a few years ago for 2.6 million per carat. Orange is actually much more rare. The next largest size in auction ever was a 5-karat, the pumpkin diamond. So it went from 14 to 5. See a big difference. And that one for 2.6 million per carat was the 14-karat stone, whereas in comparison, the blue diamond, the record is 4 million per carat. So why does that make sense that a blue diamond being less rare would go for more than a more rare stone? It's because there's been enough blue diamonds where the market is actually established for a very strong, vivid blue diamond with a larger size. Depends what the customer is looking for, and we'll get more into that. Some customers want a super collectible, and other customers want to buy strictly for value. We'll go more into the divide between that. So how to look at a GAA certificate for colored diamonds, what's different from a white diamond. The big difference, well, the most important thing is what the diamond looks like. So it's great in terms of selling, in terms of getting your customer to understand, because really a lot of the value is based on what a layman can see. If you see a beautiful color, that's going to probably be a more expensive stone than if you see not as beautiful a color. The price is not as dependent on other factors. Color is the most important factor, how beautiful that color is and how rare that color is. But you're not looking for excellent. You can get that out of your head, which is very nice, I'm sure, for a lot of you. You're looking for, does the shape make sense? Is it a beautiful pear shape in terms of the right proportions, length to width, or is it a very short pear shape? If it's a short pear shape, that can be a discount. Is it a lot of depth? Is it over 70 depth, and so the stone looks small? That'll be a discount. But it's not, you're not looking for, it has to be within 63% depth to get to an excellent cut grade. Also, if it's too flat, does it window out the color? If it windows out, then that could be a discount. But if it doesn't, even if it does happen to be a 40 depth stone, if you actually don't see the color windowing out, and what I mean by that, it just means a little transparency and not as much life, then you have a stone that has color throughout the stone, but looks that much bigger. So it can actually be an increase in value. So what you're looking for and what the customer is looking for is how beautiful the stone is. Some of that is to do with how we perceive the value, how the individual perceives the value. Some stuff to look out for in the GAA grade. The fluorescence can be a problem. If you have a blue diamond and you see fluorescence, probably stay away. Blue diamonds don't have fluorescence. If you see pink diamonds, most pink diamonds do have fluorescence, so it's not as big of a problem. In terms of clarity, again, some of the colors, if the stone is not so rare, if it's a yellow stone, then clarity makes more of a difference. and more people are looking for higher clarity stones. If the color is extremely rare, like a pink diamond, then clarity starts to be less of an issue. It's still an issue in terms of value, but because pinks are so rare, if a stone is I1 or I2, it still has a market, because what's most important, as I said, was the strength of the color. So if a person is looking at two stones and one happens to be an unbelievable, the best color, but as an I1, as long as it's eye clean, a lot of people will pick that stone over a VS stone that is much lighter in color, or has a little bit of an off color, maybe has straight pink certificate but looks orangey or looks brownish. A lot of people will pick actually the I1 stone because what they're looking for is color. That's not to say that clarity still has an issue. If a person wants a high clarity stone, they will have to pay for it, and a lot of people do look for that. So here, in terms of comments, what's important for fluorescence for all these stones, and it's also for graining too, which is the original reason why fluorescence started to lower the value of stones, is actually that if the color is hindered by the fluorescence or the graining, or if it starts to look a little milky, you don't start to see the whole color. That's something you can see, and that's something the customer can see, and that reduces the value significantly. If you do not see that, then it's still a stone that has a market, and you can feel confident selling. In terms of shape, this one actually happens to be pear brilliant, but most fancy colors are going to be modified. So you'll see it after the shape, after pear, it'll say pear modified brilliance in most cases, or in any shape, it'll most likely say modified brilliant. The reason for that is what you're trying to do in a color diamond is you're trying to show as much color as possible. In a white diamond, a lot of people, the reason why round stones can appear more white is because it's the most brilliant sort of stone, most brilliant sort of cut. And it actually is designed to have the color, to have light go through it, have a very short path through the stone, and then immediately bounce out. And that makes it look as light as possible, or as white, as colorless as possible. You're trying to do the opposite with the color diamond, try and make its color look as strong as possible. So you want that light to actually bounce around as many times as possible before it leaves the stone. And a technique for doing that in cutting is to actually make it modified, not make it brilliant. For stones that are brilliant, because of that, because you need more potential in the stone, potential color in the stone to actually get the same face-up look, they will go for a premium. So that's especially true for emerald cuts, which can't be, which traditional emerald cuts are not modified stones, and round stones, which they have to be brilliant cuts if to be a traditional round stone. So what is going on with the market, and how do you show what's happened over the last couple of years, the last decade, the last couple of decades? So what I like to point towards to show the increase in value over time is this one example, the Princey Pink Diamond, when actually sold twice at the public auction. So you actually have an apples to apples comparison, the same stone sold. It sold the first time in 1960 for 46,000 pounds. It sold in London, which was equivalent to $69,000. Then sold again 53 years later in 2013 for $39 million. So it went from 69,000 to 39 million. We did the math for you, and that's actually a 10.7% compounded increase, appreciation of value for 53 years straight to get that stone. If you have money in a market, or you're talking to any of your clients who do, that's an amazing return for any type of item, for any type of investment. And all that time, someone got to enjoy it. They don't have any upkeep. You can just put it in the safe if you want to. And it's an incredible stone. So Obviously, a lot of items, a lot of assets went up during that time period. 53 years is a long time, so we actually compared it to the Dow Jones. The Dow Jones in 53 years from 1960 to 2013 did well, but it only went up 28 times its value. In comparison, the Princey Pink went up 576 times its value. So nowhere in comparison, the Dow Jones versus the Princey Pink. This is one stone, however, shows the increase for this one particular stone, but it's only one example. There doesn't happen to be many examples that are apples to apples of the same stone going at public auction. So another way that you can show the increase in value is actually looking at the high end of the market. So in 2009, what you see here is actually all these dots are stones, are the highest sold per carat stones since 2009. In 2009, during the height of the financial crisis, a blue diamond went for auction. It was a 6-carat vivid blue diamond, and it actually broke, during that horrible financial time, it broke the record of price per carat. It went for $1.3 million per carat, and that was the record at that time. Unbelievable to break it during such a bad financial time. Since then, 23 stones. We did this in middle of 2016. We made this chart, and there's been more since then. But at this time, there was 23 stones had broken that initial record in 2009. And as you look at the chart, you can see as time goes on, as you go farther right on the chart, more and more stones start to break that record, what was once the record. And again, as you go right, you see more and more stones going for even higher price per carat. So, for instance, the record now, which still holds today at the beginning of 2016, was also a vivid blue, and that sold for $4 million per carat. So even though it's not the same stone, the record in 2009 broke the record, was $1.3 million per carat, and then in 2016 was $4 million per carat. And you see there's many other stones that are going for prices considerably higher for over $3 million per carat. So shows that the high end of the market has gone up, continued to go up. So changes in retail. What is happening in our market? And a lot of that is what we all can see, but I want to dive into it a little bit more. So obviously the internet is having a huge effect on all of retail. What that's doing, it's actually a catalyst for the next 2 points here, which is it's adding transparency and requiring more validation for the customers. So I'm sure many of you have had people come into your store and they say, what's the price of this product? If you're giving it to them and say this is a good, they can easily, quickly check on their phones, on the internet, and see how good a price that is. So right there, see if they want to look for it. It's very quick. They can find out what other places will sell it for, and it's also requiring you to validate your prices every time you make a price quote. This has is obviously different, but sometimes validation can be. The GIA was actually originally created by many companies in the diamond trade. What was happening is that they would have some stones that they would know were incredibly rare. And let's just talk about white diamonds. This is the whitest diamond and it has no inclusions. They would tell that to their customer. The customer understands that, okay, this person is selling me this stone. So sometimes that person could be telling the truth, and maybe sometimes they could not be telling the truth. And it looked like a nice stone to the customer, but they don't have the expertise. So to give validation to these privates who are purchasing stones, they said a lot of the stores and the wholesalers and diamond trade got together and said we should create a third-party organization. They called it the GIA, to validate someone who doesn't have an invested interest in our sale, to say this is a medium stone, this is a bad stone, this is a good stone, this is a DIF, this is the highest color and clarity for a white diamond. What that did is that these retailers, people selling the stones, can say, you don't have to trust me. This is a third-party organization, and they say it's the best best color and clarity. Now go out there, and if the customer wanted to find another stone that's the best color and clarity, they would see that there were much higher prices. And it allowed them to feel more comfortable about what they were buying, and that in turn created more demand for the higher colors and clarities, and allowed the retailers and the people selling the stones to actually slowly request more for these diamonds as their costs went up as well to actually attain these stones. So what do many brands do to create high-end fashion items of value? So what they do is a lot of them have a long history. They show that to the people who might be interested in the stones. They obviously have to make something beautiful, and they limit rarity. They create rarity. So I'm sure Rolex or Patek Philippe could probably sell many times more and are capable of creating many more watches than they currently do, but they want to make sure that they create a certain amount of these to create rarity, to make sure that the demand is even with the supply. If there is too much supply, it's put pressure on them, and it puts pressure on people selling these items to try to sell them as quick as possible because they might think that somebody else is going to undercut them. The difficulty with this kind of market is that when times are good, when it's not difficult, it's easy to say, okay, we're only going to make so many. We're going to hold our prices. What a lot of these companies try to do is as you know, they check in certain stores or places that sell them and make sure that they're not selling for a discount to validate their prices. The difficult part when times are bad, it's actually twofold. Not only do these companies creating these products feel more pressure to sell, they have a higher supply. They also don't have the means to buy up inventory or put as much pressure on their customers who they know are having a hard time, the retail stores. The difference in color diamonds is that it's not created rarity. These items are incredibly rare. Currently, we make pink diamond hoops, and they're a certain millimeter size to create these. These hoops I've been doing very, very well with. So I would be very happy to make many multiples more, to make 50 more and sell them. But because of how rare pink diamonds are and how rare a particular type of size is in pink diamonds, it's impossible for me to make so many in one particular time. I can usually make 6 at a time, and then I have to wait for more production. We buy directly from the Argyle mine, where an authorized partner, like equivalent to a site holder. And even with that, we can only make a few of these types of hoops per allocation. So that does not allow me to create more of these items. So there's a natural roadblock. Even if I wanted to, I couldn't create more of them. So how do we marketing? Similar to everything else, these are examples of how we've marketing stones, but the same thing. When a customer is looking for is a validation. It's really unbelievably powerful to have a stone like the one in the middle picture, to have a vivid green diamond. And if they go out and they look for these stones, they won't be able to find it for the lower price. So if you're able to plant the seed to start the education, it can blossom into much higher amount of education for the customer. If they go out and look on their own, which, like the GIA, they wanted a third party to validate the values of these stones. If you plant the seed and the customer looks for these stones, they will see that the values of these stones can be incredibly high, and they'll see and understand that how special and how rare these color diamonds are. So understanding these high value customers and when to sell, when to spend more time. So we divide this back into reactive and proactive. So reactive selling is, as is written here, customer comes to you. It's when they come in, they say they want a particular item. I'm looking for an engagement ring, or I'm looking for a watch. What's important is that you know about the product, you have that education, you are able to attain it. If they ask for a tag Heuer, and you don't have it, they'll say, you know what, I guess I'll go to another store that is an authorized seller of tags. So you have to happen to attain it, and it's obviously much more powerful to actually have the product in your store. That happens twofold. First, to just be able to sell it right there on the spot. That's a much higher percentage chance to sell the stone. And second, if people go into your store and see that you have a particular product, they understand that you can get other types of products. So if you do have a tag Heuer and they want a particular type of style, they'll go to you and ask it. The same thing is true for color diamonds. If you have 0 color diamonds in your store, they go in there, they're thinking about buying an orange diamond or a yellow orange diamond. They will say, oh, I guess I don't carry this type of sort of product. I'll go somewhere else. A big frustration that a lot of retailers that I talk to have is that they have particular customers, high-end customers that are capable of buying whatever they want. But then when they want to get those higher-end purchases, they go somewhere else. They go to a Graf, or they go to a Harry Winston, whereas the retailer has been dealing with this product, with this customer for such a long period of time. But when they want to make their big purchase, the most expensive purchase, they just don't think that that retailer has the product, so they go to one of the big brands. If you don't have any product, any color diamonds in your store, that's what they can ultimately think. So it's important to have some color diamonds in there. Proactive selling is pretty much the opposite in a lot of cases of reactive selling. The most proactive is if the customer knows nothing about the product, knows nothing about color diamonds, which can, as it sounds, be very difficult. So why would you teach someone and spend so much extra time with a customer who knows nothing about this item, where you're going to have to spend many hours to first educate them a little bit about the stone, probably wait some time, have them educate themselves, and then maybe hopefully eventually come back in and get the product. And it pays to be proactive when the values are higher. If your average sale is $1,000 and you make one sale every day you work, let's say it's 300. Let's say you work 250 days a year. You're bringing in $250,000 for wherever you work. In contrast, if you make one sale per year, but that sale is $300,000, you're bringing in more revenue than you would if you made one sale every single day you worked. So the higher the value of the sale, the more time it pays for you to spend on actually trying to make it. So if you have a customer who you think can make that big purchase, in that case it pays. And this is taking off your seller's hat and putting on your business hat, and realizing that it takes certain times. If you have extra time, it can be paid to be proactive on any particular customer and any particular time. But definitely the higher the value, the more valuable it is to try to be proactive and teach about stones, teach about colored diamonds. So being proactive, sometimes it just helps to walk ourselves through it. For the most part, it's just keep educating people about it, keep talking about it, keep contacting them, trying not to be so reactive with these sorts of customers, with the higher end customer. So if a person is a collector of watches, it helps they are a collector in general, so they could have an interest in eventually collecting colored diamonds. These colored diamonds really lend themselves to collection because they're so difficult to find. And white diamonds, if you're looking for, if you're trying to complete a whole set of white diamonds, you're going to buy a ring. Maybe later in life you'll upgrade a ring. Maybe you'll buy earrings, you'll buy a necklace. And there's only those few variations. In contrast, for color diamonds, you have all those variations that I just mentioned for every single color. And for blues, for pinks, for greens, for browns, for oranges, And even if you wanted to, even if you had the best customer who can afford anything and wanted it all right away, it would take you a very long time to actually even find all these different colors and variations, to find pairs, to find particular sizes. So the market almost forces you to stay with this customer for a long period of time, to have a relationship for a long period of time, which then can lead to their family, can lead to their friends, and leads to, in many cases, we've seen many times in many different retailers and people selling colored diamonds, a very long relationship with a particular customer. Going back to explaining these stones to other people who could be interested in colored diamonds but don't know anything about it. You'll get this presentation. So this is just text. We made it as simple as, or as minimal as just explaining, as if you're cold calling these customers. It takes just keep calling and keep trying to contact the customers that could be interested in colored diamonds. If you're a salesperson that succeeds on 50% of your sales, but you make 2 phone calls a day, you're not doing as well as a salesperson that succeeds on 10% of your sales and makes 50 phone calls a day. So definitely keep going out there and keep contacting these customers. Pays for you and pays for the store that you're working with. So actually looking at each one of these customers that you're talking to, we divide the personalities of customers, into 2 basic sections. One section is a person looking for a celebration or prestige, and the other section is a person looking for an asset or an investment. And for most people, it's this is more of a gray. It's not black or white. So they might be mostly celebration or prestige, but a little bit of asset investment, and vice versa. Some customers are right in the center. But when you talk to your customer, you're trying to understand what they're actually looking for, what type of personality they are. So if they are the type that you see is looking for a show or looking for celebration, what they're looking for is, as I said, the show. They're looking for a bang for the buck. When you sell to them, you should be focusing on how many famous stones there are. Colored diamonds, we mentioned the Whittle, the Hope, the Wittelsbach, the Williamson Pink was a pink diamond given to the Queen of England, the Dresden Green, and many stones that sell in auction for unbelievable prices. There's lots of stones like that. If they have a particular type of budget, it also is very important that you understand and try to learn what the budget is. We've had many cases where a customer will come in and say, okay, I'm looking for a pink diamond. I heard about this new product called pink diamonds, and I'm looking for a 5-carat stone, and I've got a $20,000 budget, which is a nice budget, but it won't get you a 5-carat pink diamond. So understanding that budget can help you get the type of stone or get the type of jewelry item and colored diamonds that the customer is looking for. If they have a budget and they want a particular size, you go for modifiers. That reduces the value in most cases. The way modifiers actually reduce value is, general sense is, if the secondary color, the modifying color, is a lower value than the base color. So, for instance, yellowish green. Yellow is a much more common color. That's going to be a big discount on a straight green. Yellowish orange, same thing. Going to be a big discount on straight orange. Contrast, purplish pink. Purple is very expensive and pink is very expensive. So purplish pink won't be so much of a discount. Also, jewelry. These are the celebration and prestige can be the case where you can make higher margins. It takes, with today's world of transparency and validation, it takes understanding where you want to make value. If a customer is looking for a very straightforward item, they can easily find another 1-carat not easily find, but they will be able to find a 1 carat intense pink. If they're looking for an entire necklace, then it's much harder for anybody to actually price an entire necklace of pink diamonds. What I look for is I try to always find value. So if I see a piece, let's say even for auction with the whole world to see, if I see a piece with many different colors, I know that a private customer, unless they just fall in love with it and say, okay, I think this is worth this price, or I'm willing to pay anything for it, it'll be hard for anybody, even people in the trade, to value the piece. It has 3 pink diamonds, 2 blue diamonds, 5 brown diamonds. I'll spend the time, sit down, and I know the values of each one of these stones. So I'm able to add it up and say confidently, this is the value of the whole piece. Most people, almost the whole world is not able to do that. So it has to have the look, but it is also a scenario where you can have a higher profit margin and feel comfortable that your customer won't be able to compare apples to apples, won't be able to find another pink diamond necklace that's selling for more or less. There's always something that can be said. Oh, this necklace has more carats. This necklace has higher colors. This necklace has, some other characteristic about it that is either higher or lower in value. Not celebration, prestige, asset investment customers, they're looking for the value. They're looking for the proof. So for those types of customers, it's actually making it as simple as possible. You want to have very straightforward types of stones, 1 carat, 2 carat, 3 carat. It pays to have the higher clarities in this case, because they might one day be looking to trade the stone. And it also pays to not give them the piece of jewelry, because if they're the type of asset investment customer, they will start to feel uncomfortable about validating to themselves how much a necklace should be. It's very difficult to value. But if you show them a 1 carat intense pink diamond and you're able to give it to them at the correct price, they can quickly learn that, okay, I'm not able to find the stone for less, and feel comfortable enough to actually buy it. The information is out there to validate these prices. So you don't have to be afraid. In a lot of cases, it takes you going out there and looking at the stones and learning about the stones and learning about the prices, validating for yourselves what the value should be. If you do that, if you spend the time and you do that, and you spend the time with the customer, you will be able to find the stones for the right value, and it can lead to many, many sales. So this is examples of that prestige customer, talking to them about celebrities, many celebrities. We can forward this on, but that you can talk about that are buying colored diamonds, and it continues to grow. The demand for these stones, with the supply staying the same and in some cases going down. You obviously want to wow them. There's unbelievable things to say. This bracelet on the left of your screen, this piece, I love to say, these are colors from all over the world. You got pink diamonds from Australia, you got yellow diamonds from Canada, you got green diamonds from Brazil, you got blue diamonds from South Africa. It takes a long time to acquire these stones, going everywhere to try to find a mix of colors that looks this way. For that investment type of customer, that value type of customer, talking about Argyle pinks, a great analogy to use is the entire production of Argyle pinks, a mine that produces over 90% of the pink diamonds in the world. The entire production of pink diamonds, over 10 points each. So all their major stones, and major being starting at 10 points, can actually fit in the palm of your hand. So a year's production in one person's palm. That's how many pink diamonds there are for the entire world. Another great analogy for both types of customers. This is a stone that we own, the Argyle Violet, and this was the 2016 #1 stone from Argyle. So every year, Argyle comes out with their tender, which is their top 50 to 65 stones for that particular year. This Argyle Violet was the best stone, what they labeled as the best stone of 2016. They came out with a lot of information about this stone, this Argyle Violet, and over 30 years of tenders, 30 years of their best stones go into these tenders that they do. They've only had 12 total carats of violet color coming from the Argyle mine. This stone is 2.83 carats, so it's over 25% of the lifetime of over 30 years of Argyle tenders in one particular stone. The next largest stone was just over a carat. So that kind of analogy shows to the customer and shows to anybody who's listening how rare this stone is. You're not talking about so many in the world. This is one of a kind. Someone's looking for something else, a stone like it, they will not find it because it's over double the size of the next largest stone, and there's only 12 total carats ever to come out of the Argyle mine of tender. This is more information about pink diamonds. It's less than 0.01% of the total production of pink diamonds. Can we use that analogy for one palmful for the entire world? Violets, they say, an entire year's production can fit in a thimble. Blue diamonds, there's no official information like that, but I look for blue diamonds all the time. We constantly have people around the world who, if there's ever a blue diamond coming from rough, they text me or they WhatsApp me. And we're any significant stones over 1 carat, it's probably less than 20 per year that will polish over 1 carat. Purples and oranges are even more rare than that. And Argyle is owned by Rio Tinto, and they had a law firm I believe it was in London, actually look at their stones to give them all the information of their sales. And they wanted to compare their appreciation and their tender prices against the major equities, the major markets. So you can see it here compared to the S&P, the Dow Jones, and the Hang Seng. And you see this goes up to 2015, and I think they updated to 2016 again. You see that since 2000 and 2015, it had already gone up 350%. They actually had particular types of stones, and they compared it, a 1 carat intense pink at 2000 in comparison to 2015. And they did that for many different subsections of pink diamonds, 50 pointers, 10 pointers, and so on. In comparison, you can see 2015. Also, the markets did well during that time period overall, even though it dipped in 2008. And in comparison, it's 50% higher from 2000. And 2008, it was around 75, so it's probably around double them. And this is versus white diamonds. White diamonds are a little bit up since 2002, but nowhere in comparison to pink diamonds. So jewelry, from these stones can be high in value. It takes you looking at the stones. Sometimes it can be difficult. We have 10 pointers that are 200,000 a carat. So you're talking about $20,000 for a little 10 pointer. There are some areas of the world that will buy a 10 pointer just for an engagement ring or just for a collectible. But most of the world market actually wants to see more for $20,000. So they have interesting characteristics, but beautiful jewelry, obviously helps create the collector. We're continuing to create the jewelry. You can continue to create designs if you're, willing to buy stones. And it seems all we can see is that this market is growing. There's a reason why I was asked to do this presentation. Around the world, markets that were once seemed weak, we are going to more and more markets because there is more and more demand for these stones. The transparency of the world has accelerated the possibility of demand going up. and the possibility of demand spreading to new areas that it wasn't there before. For the same reasons, very easy for the world to validate to themselves, okay, maybe in your area they don't know color diamonds, but if they quickly look, they'll find out that in Australia they love pink diamonds, and in Europe they love blue diamonds, and in other areas they love any other color of the rainbow. So if you plant that seed, and if they go out on their own, you can feel confident that they will only continue to have good information about this market. So that is the presentation. Feel free to email me, and if anybody has any questions, please ask. Thank you very much.